International University. He had major breakthroughs in his career in fields ranging from tech consulting to marketing and tech. He's an award-winning speaker, a quality that helped him bag the NASSCOM award for excellence in communication skills. Mr. Vivek Nair is a man with an experience, having worked at career launcher in big tech companies like Byju's. Without any further ado, I should like to call upon Mr. Vivek Nair, sir. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Thanks, Ayush. I think that was a very detailed introduction. Thanks, Chaitanya. Thanks, everyone who came together to put this session together. Before I get going, I'm assuming that you people are able to hear my voice, right? And I'm hoping that you are also able to see what we have here in the background on the screen, right?
Yes, sir. The video is perfectly visible.
Great, fantastic. So, like Ayush has just mentioned, right, that this session is primarily going to be on what resume and SOP writing, right? That's the basic agenda for the day. And I'm sure all of you are very comfortable, or at least have come across these terms, right? SOP and resume are not things which are any new to anybody who's basically in college, right? Can I assume that everybody here is an engineer?
Yes, sir.
Everybody is an engineer. So we should be able to understand each other's pain points better, right? Because all of us are engineers, it's more of a pie chart kind of a relationship that we have. So a lot of these points that we have here are customized for engineers, and which is what is one of the takeaways of this session and how this session stands apart, right? Second thing, like I was saying, everybody's familiar with resume. Most people are aware of an SOP, right? You want to join a company, you will write an SOP. You want to join a college, you will write an SOP. You want to pursue foreign education, again, there is an SOP involved, right? But this one is more relevant because it's from a job perspective, right? Let's say you want to apply to a company for an internship opportunity, or let's say that you want to apply to a job. This SOP is more relevant from that perspective, right? Number one. Number two, I've picked up a lot of these examples, which I'm sure a lot of you would be able to associate with, because like I was saying, all of us are from engineering backgrounds. So this might just make more sense to us, right? So this is not a theoretical yarn kind of a session where, at the end of the session, all of us are going to be Nobel Prize winners. That's not going to happen. It's something that is a lot more relevant, something that a lot of people will be able to associate with, right? I'm somebody who really gets bored very quickly, right? I don't wish to stand here and keep talking and on, asking for your votes, right? So in case if you have any points to raise, in case if there are any pointers that you want me to address, please feel free to interrupt me, and we should be able to take the conversation in that direction, right? Although I have a PPT here, which obviously will help us guide the conversation further. But like I was saying, if there is anything that you would want me to address during the session, please let me know, right? We will anyway have a Q&A at the end, which can be on addressing your questions, your concerns, your queries, everything that you have. But like I was saying, if there is anything that comes in between, I'll be more than happy to address those questions as well, right? Coming back to the original point that we were talking about, resume and CVs, or rather resume and SOP, right? I've tried to focus more on the SOP part over here, right? The timeline that's given to me is about 90 minutes. I should be able to wrap all of this in 90 minutes, which is why I will not stretch it very much. I'll try to be as specific as I can, and then we'll discuss primarily the SOPs today, right? Any pointers on resume, of course, we can do that, but primary focus of this session is going to be SOPs, right? Or what is called as statement of purpose. Now, before we go ahead and before we start really discussing about SOPs, there is something that I want all of you to look at, right? And I want responses depending upon what you see on the screen, yeah? I'm sure you guys are seeing two different pictures over here, right? We can look at the first one, the one that has a horizontal line and an arc. Can somebody help us understand what that picture is? What do they interpret from that picture? There's no right, there's no wrong, but just feel free to respond. The first picture over here. What comes to your mind when you see that picture? I'm not waiting for a minutes to answer. It's a very creative answer, more than happy.
I see a rainbow in the first.
Okay. What comes to your mind when you look at that picture?
A rainbow, yeah.
So will it be possible to readjust the camera because a big portion of the screen is being cut out? Like we cannot see the diagrams clearly.
which is very strange. Okay, one moment. Let me just take the camera a little backwards. That might just help. Does this become any
Okay.
better? So these are two different pictures, right? This is one and this is number two. Now I'm
It's
sure
slightly
you're able to see
better
both.
than before, sir.
Yeah. So we can talk about each of these one by one. We can talk about the first picture. This is all there is to it. What comes to your mind when you see that picture? Any thoughts? Somebody said rainbow. Anything else on that? What comes to your mind? Come on. I mean, all of us are engineers, right? We have a very fertile imagination. Come on.
An entrance.
Okay, okay, that's nice. What else? What else? Come on. It looks like, I mean, all of us when we were kids, we used to make a lot of these drawings, right? We would make a scenery and, we would make a sun, we would make the sun and we would make two mountains and the sun is there in between. So this looks like maybe like a sunrise or a sunset to some of us, right? There are a lot of us who've grown up watching Tom and Jerry, right? I mean, as children, we watched a lot of Tom and Jerry. This might even look like Jerry's home, right? The house or the place where Jerry resides. This might even look like that, right? But I'll tell you what it looks like to me. It looks like there is this wall and it is Mahatma Gandhi standing on the other side, right? I'm not sure if you people are able to visualize, but to me, there is a wall and on the other side, what I see is Mahatma Gandhi, right? Let me come to the other picture, this one. What does this look like to you? What is this picture about? What comes to your mind when you look at that picture? Any answers?
So cloud.
Okay, it looks like a cloud. Okay, sure. What else? Any other answers?
Sir,
Anyway, I'll continue.
it is yeah, it is used as a visualization to show some comments or someone is pondering upon.
Okay, somebody is thinking about something, somebody is pondering about something, which is great, sure. Okay, this is the common picture that comes to your mind is, say, for example, you have two different characters, right? And it's basically a book that you're reading. You have two different characters, and these two people are speaking with each other, and you will see that these dialogues are being written inside these structures, right? Typically, that is what it is about, right? That's how you will see characters or dialogues being written, especially when you read books, right? But why am I trying to show you this? Everybody can have a different interpretation of this. People can look at this picture in a different way. They can have a different meaning for this picture. That's just fine. What I'm trying to bring to your notice here is that it's a very, very subjective thing, right? You tell me this is a cloud, I'll be okay with that. You tell me it's basically a structure where dialogue is written, I'm still okay with that, right? I don't really mind with whatever you people call it, right? Because it's very, very subjective. And that's the first thing that we will address when it comes to our statement of purpose, right? A statement of purpose or a resume is something that is very, very subjective, right? There are a lot of rules and regulations that people will come up with, right? If you just Google the word resume, you will come across hundreds of rules. If you just resume statement of purpose, you will come across a lot of rules, right? But the idea here is to understand that a lot of people look at CVs, resumes, and SOPs from a very different perspective, right? So maybe if I find an SOP to be very creative, the other person may not find it very creative, right? It's a very subjective. Although there are certain things which are very common, right? There are certain ground rules which are in place. We will talk about those ground rules, but there is a great deal of subjectivity involved, and what you might like your SOP may not be liked by me and vice versa, right? So that's the first thing that you have to remember as far as your resume or your SOP is concerned, because there is no like you guys are, all of you, most of you are from what, Department of Petroleum Engineering, right? Anybody else from a different background? Most of you I know are from Department of Petroleum Engineering, especially from IIT Canva. Anybody else from a different background? Not really, right? Most of you are from petroleum engineering background. So again, most of your CVs are going to look very similar. Most of your SOPs are going to look really similar, right? So that's the first thing that you need to understand, that people can interpret it in very, very different ways and can come out with very different meanings, right? But that brings us to the first thing that you should be avoiding when it comes to SOPs, right? Everybody can tell you what needs to be done in an SOP, what are the good things. Everybody will be able to tell you. But my focus here, the first point that we will talk about, is the first thing that you need to ignore. The first thing that you have to be careful about when it comes to an SOP. Right? Let's look at what that first point is. All right. I'm sure you're able to read the very first line. right? Sounding like a slave or being apologetic about looking for a job. Now, I get a lot of emails. I used to get a lot of emails. I used to get a lot of messages on LinkedIn where people are applying to a job, right? And they make it sound as if they are. I mean, I'm sure all of you would have also come across this, right? You open your LinkedIn and you will see somebody making a cry, somebody making an appeal, somebody saying that I was removed from my job. I was asked to leave. I have a lot of liabilities, right? And please give me my job. Please give me my job. There are people actually begging online, right? There are actually people begging on LinkedIn for a job, right? That's one side of the story. But if you ask somebody to write an email asking or requesting for a job, there are also people begging on that email. It's a very, very commonly made mistake. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're writing an email and you're saying, I request you to please refer to my CV. I request you to please consider my application. You are using the word request, you're also using the word please. It does not add up, right? There is no need for you to use both these words. Maybe your thought process is that you want to be extra polite. Maybe you want to be come across as somebody who's very, very formal, which is why you are using words both please and request, but it basically does not have the purpose, right? So the most important thing that you have to remember in your SOP is do not be apologetic about finding a job, right? You're not committing a crime. Please remember that. It's not a crime that you're committing and there's nothing wrong about it, right? You don't really have to sound like a slave. You're applying to a company, you're applying to a job. You don't really have to sound like a slave, right? That's the most important thing. It's about the tonality of your statement of purpose, right? The next point, you will come across a lot of these lines. I come across a lot of these lines on a regular basis, right? The first line is, I request you to plan, please grant me an opportunity. Like I just told you, right? There is a word here, request. There is a word here, please. Essentially, both of these mean the same. If you use both these words, it doesn't mean that you're being extra polite or you're being extra cautious or extra nice. Nothing of that sort. Yeah. I'm not sure if you're able to read the second sentence, but I'm hoping you are. Right? A lot of people promise a lot of things. I want you to just focus on the second point there. Right? The point about marriage. What does it say? It says, I will never marry, but will take a one-way trip to Mars if you shortlist me. Now, we come across a lot of these people making tall claims, tall promises, right? Sir, I will do this, sir, I will do that. Sir, please shortlist my CV, right? They make a lot of these promises, but none of these promises ultimately become very successful, right? Because you can't make unrealistic claims, you can't make unrealistic promises. It's a very, very commonly made mistake, right? Don't make it sound as if you are willing to let go of your right hand in place of that job, right? You don't have to do that. You don't really have to sound that desperate. Okay. The third point that we will talk about is, again, I will be humbly honored if your kind self looks into my CV and shortlist me. Again, बहुत ज़्यादा respect देना, बहुत ज़्यादा polite होना अच्छी बात है, respect देना अच्छी बात है, all good. But when you give extra cautious, when you are being extra nice, extra polite, it does not mean your chances of your SOP getting selected or your CV getting selected increases, right? Nothing of that sort really happens. If there is a fitment, they will select you. If there is not a fitment, they will not select you, right? So that is the first and the most important thing that you have to be careful about when it comes to your statement of purpose. Do not beg, right? Do not beg for a job. Do not make it sound as if the company is doing a favor on you by selecting you, right? It's a two-way street. Please understand that. You are working for them. They are giving you money in return, right? It's a purely give and take kind of a thing. Right? So please don't make it sound like they are doing a favor on you by actually recruiting you. Right? That does not really work. Right? That's the first thing you should be careful about when it comes to your statement of purpose. Right? Let's go to the second point that you have to be particular about. What does it say? Writing as if you are God's gift to humanity. Now, I come across a lot of CVs. I come across a lot of resumes. I come across a lot of statement of purposes where people make all sorts of promises, right? This is something that I found very recently, right? Somebody had written this to me, right? That I am able to impress crocodiles and bees. I'm not sure if you are that lucky to have come across a statement of purpose that says something like that, right? There are people making claims like that, right? I swam the Pacific Ocean. I impress crocodiles and bees. I am a prince without the princess. That's just being made up. Nobody wrote that. But I'm a $1 billion opportunity for recruiters. 1, 2, and 3, I have had people say this to me. Right? I don't know what they were trying to do when they were writing an SOP, but I've had people use these 3 sentences when they write an SOP. Right? What generally happens when somebody is making a very, very strong claim? What do you think happens when there are people making all sorts of promises which are definitely not possible for a person to satisfy? What really happens? Any answers around that? When you make all these tall claims, right? When you are being extremely liberal with your words, what really happens? Any answers around that?
That does signify you are trying to flatter them and questions your own genuineness.
I'm sorry, I was not able to hear you.
I think that signifies that you are just trying to flatter them, and that puts a question mark on your own genuineness.
Yeah, I mean, it puts a big question mark on your genuineness, right? What is it that you're trying to prove? So, I'm not saying
we
that you
need
have
to
to
lose
exactly
the
use these words,
authenticity.
but you will come across a lot of these instances where people are making all sorts of promises, right? Where people say, promise the stars and they're not able to deliver, right? Umpteen number of cases, again, there are companies which operate in this space, right? You've got to understand. So, let's say, I'm just giving an example here. When you get selected for a job, right, you are asked to give a reference, right? There is a background check being done, you know, your place of residence, your ID proof, all these things are basically checked, right? Now, it is very common that when you apply for a job and when you finally get selected, there are also companies that specialize in background checks, right? Companies that are making money because their job is to make sure that they do background check on the candidate who's just got selected, right? So there are companies which are operating in that space. So if your idea is to basically just lie, if your idea is to just make all claims, false excuses or false promises, it is something that will definitely not work out, right? That's one side of the story, right? Lying is one side of the story. But you will also come across people who will end up making all these tall claims, which are not really lies, but still they will try to make it look like their achievement is something very brilliant, right? Now we have all of these people here attending. I'm sure you all of you have something like a tech fest in your college, right? There are multiple events happening, multiple tech fests that are happening. And this is my experience. We were doing interview for a particular college here, an engineering college, and we were doing recruitments for them. We were helping them with their interviews. And what really happened is, I was speaking with this guy. He came first. I asked him, what extracurricular activities are you involved in? And he said that I'm responsible. I'm the person who's organizing this particular event in my college, right? I'm the chief coordinator for that event. I said, okay, that's great. The second person comes in for the interview. I ask him the same question. What is it that you are doing as a part of your extracurricular? He also tells me the same thing, right? He tells me that I'm the chief coordinator of this particular event, right? The third guy comes in, the fourth girl comes in, fifth guy comes in. There are at least 10 or 11 people who said the same thing to us, saying that we are chief organizers of our tech fest. Now, there's only one tech fest, and there are only 11 or 12 members in that committee that is organizing that festival, and everybody is claiming to be the chief. Right? So that clearly there is a problem there. Right? So please make sure that you are not making false promises, you are not making false claims. Right? You are being as specific as you can be and as genuine as you can be, because there are companies operating in that space who will be able to figure out very easily. Another very commonly attributed thing, again, this is pertaining to interviews, but because we're talking about an SOP, I thought I would still bring it here. Very commonly, people also lie in interviews. Right? Please understand, the person sitting on the other side, the person who's taking your interview, will be able to catch your lies very easily if they want to. Right? If they're letting you lie, maybe it's for a reason, maybe they're just being very kind. But if you think that you can get away by lying, that is not going to happen. Right? Please make sure that you do not lie. Right? Cool. We'll go to the third thing that you really have to be careful about when it comes to your SOP. It is this. Assuming you are Shakespeare Pro Ultra Max, not sure if you're able to figure out what this point actually means. Right? A lot of people try to impress by writing SOPs and using very, very difficult words in those SOPs. Right? That does not always help. Right? There are some of us who know English language really well. There are some of us who speak very well. There are some of us who write very well, which is great. Right? But again, a lot of people end up using a lot of difficult words. Anybody here preparing for MBA? Anybody here preparing for CAT? Anyone preparing for CAT? Anybody preparing for competitive exams? Okay, not really sure, right? But again, just putting things into perspective here, you will come across a book which is called as Word Power Made Easy. I'm not sure आप लोगों ने already सुना है कि नहीं. It's basically a red colored book, right? Usually referred to by a lot of CAT aspirants. And again, that books primarily helps you improve your vocabulary, helps you understand those better from a competitive examination perspective. Okay? And a lot of people read that book, and what happens is once they've read that book, once they've learned words from that book, they start using those words very, very frequently, right? And they, even if that word is not justified in that context, they will still want to use that word. Okay, maybe they just want to show off, maybe they just want to show off their vocabulary, right? Which is why they use those words. Please do not show off your vocabulary in the SOP, right? This is one thing that a lot of people end up making mistake on. ठीक है, SOP में कई बार ऐसा होता है कि हमको सिर्फ impress करना होता है. Our whole motive is to impress somebody, and which is why हमको लगता है कि अगर अच्छी अंग्रेजी इस्तेमाल करेंगे, ये बहुत मुश्किल वर्ड्स अगर इस्तेमाल करेंगे, we'll be able to address the other person, we'll be able to impress the other person, which is not usually the case. Okay? Please understand one thing very, very clearly. Another very common perception that people have when it comes to SOP, when it comes to interview, although it's a little offbeat kind of a point, but I'll still address it. A lot of people think that you have to be exceptionally good with your spoken English if you want to clear an interview. You have to be exceptionally good when it comes to speaking English. Only then can you get a particular job. This is an absolute lie. Okay, this is an absolute lie. Please remember this thing very, very clearly, right? जहाँ तक कि आप लोगों का सवाल है, जो भी कंपनीज में आप लोग जॉब करोगे, और for that matter, most of the companies that you will be working for will also require you to work with people who do not speak English language. Right? जैसे आप सारे engineers हो, आप लोग, let's say all of you get placed at a company like Reliance. I'm just giving a random example here. If you get placed at a company like Reliance, you're going to work with people who are senior to you. You're also going to work with people junior to you. You're also going to work with people who do not even come from the same background as you. Right? And these people clearly are contract workers, maybe they are laborers, and they don't speak English language. ठीक है? तो अगर आप ये सोचते हो कि अगर मेरी अंग्रेजी अच्छी है, मेरा सिलेक्शन हो जाएगा, मैं जॉब में बहुत अच्छा कर पाऊंगा, that is not the case. Right? That could be the case in certain instances. That could be the case when you're working with teams that are located in different parts of the world, but that is not applicable for every job, especially the kind of jobs that you guys would have. English is not the most prominent thing, which is why I'm telling you this again and again, that in your SOP, do not get confused, or rather do not get emotional and start using difficult words, right? Or do not write, bas point kar ghuma ke mat likhna. Please come to the point very, very directly. Whenever you write an SOP, you have to make sure you're addressing the specific things in very, very closely. Okay? So we will talk about this, what those specific things are, but again, this is another mistake that you should be avoiding. Please don't, there's a very common expression in English, right? Beating around the bush, right? Please don't beat around the bush in your SOP. Please don't try to floor the other person using difficult words. If you are naturally good at English, it will come out very naturally, right? You don't really have to try and inspire. You don't really have to try and impress somebody just by the usage of language. Okay? So that is another thing that you have to remember as far as your SOP is concerned. The fourth thing again, which is a lot of people make mistake in, is that hoping that the recruiters or the HR will be able to read your mind. Right? What do I mean when I say, what happens when people are able to read their mind? Any answer? What happens if somebody is able to read their mind? What happens when somebody knows what's going on in your mind? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? What do you think?
Probably it's both. I think it might be good and as well be bad as well.
Obviously, it's अच्छी बात भी है, बुरी बात भी है, exactly like you said, right? The good thing is, obviously, you don't have to say everything because the other person will understand that what you're trying to say. But the bad part is that everybody gets to know what is there on your mind, right? But the one thing when it comes to SOPs is that, and the one thing that comes to that you have to remember in the case of resumes also is that कई बार आपने देखा होगा that there are people who are not giving enough information there, right? अगर आप बात करोगे SOP की, अगर आप बात करोगे resume की, you have to be extremely careful about the information that you're giving, number one, and you also have to give enough information, right? So that there is something interesting that is there in your SOP, right? Now, I'll give you a classic example how most people think, okay? Often what happens is when I'm sitting with somebody who's helping them with their SOP or when I'm helping somebody with their resume, they come up with a point and they say, and these are primarily students, okay? They tell me कि अगर ये point हमने लिखा तो इसके ऊपर बहुत सवाल आएंगे, and maybe then I'll not be able to answer that question. right? If there is a question being asked on this topic, तो मेरे को आंसर देने में दिक्कत होगी, मुझे पूरा समझ में नहीं आएगा और मैं नहीं बोलना चाहता हूँ, which is why I don't want to mention this thing on my SOP, right? Or I don't want to mention this thing on my resume. A lot of people think in that direction. Now, what do you think is the purpose of having an SOP? What do you think is the purpose of having a resume? One of the most important reasons is that you can really define the scope of your questions. अगर आपके पास SOP नहीं है, अगर आपके पास resume नहीं है, तो इंटरव्यू लेने वाले को समझ नहीं आएगा कि आपको क्या पूछना है. और अगर उसको समझ में आता भी है, he or she can ask anything to you, and that is going to be outside of your control, right? So when you have a CV or when you have a resume or when you have an SOP, you are clearly laying down the scope of that conversation. इससे benefit ये होता है, you are able to judge, you are able to assess what kind of questions can come up, right? Or what kind of questions might just help you prepare for in the interview. But when you do not have a CV or a resume or an SOP, things become very tricky, things become very difficult. Okay? Which is why, again, I'm trying to draw your attention back to this particular point, that it is very important for you to convey details. It is very important for you to know every word that is there on your resume, every word that is there on your SOP also, right? Because it is about you. You have written it, so you should be able to know what is there in that resume or what is there in that CV. ठीक है? ये कभी सोचकर मत डरना कि अगर मैंने ये पॉइंट लिखा तो ये सवाल निकल कर आएगा, राइट? अगर आपको पता है कि वो सवाल निकल कर आएगा, prepare for it rather than just avoiding that whole point, right? That does not help. That does not help at all, right? So please be very careful with this. Make sure you are giving enough details, because अगर आपकी SOP में relevant details नहीं है, right? अगर आपकी CV में relevant details नहीं है, what will happen is the person will just not have much interest in you, right? And they may end up asking any random question which will be very difficult for you to answer, right? So that's another very important thing that you have to remember. Okay, we can move on to the next point, which is this, right? Sharing irrelevant details, right? A lot of people will say a lot of things which are not supposed to be there on their resume or their SOP, right? So, for example, पहला वाला experience देखो आप. This is again somebody who wrote this on their CV. I have experience wrapping gifts at the hospital and shopping mall. Now, you really think that this kind of an experience is going to be relevant? Not at all, right? If somebody is saying that they have experience of wrapping gifts, how do you think that is going to be helpful in any job that you get after engineering? It doesn't really help, right? The same thing is applicable when somebody says that, you know, my job or my hobby is to basically grow children and give them cookie and milk, right? It again defeats the purpose. It doesn't make any sense at all. ठीक है? उसी तरह से जो हम बात कर रहे थे, my hobby is to donate my hair to charity and work as a tattoo assistant, right? Now imagine you're an engineer, you're a petroleum engineer, you want to work for this company and you're saying these things on your CV, you're saying these things on your SOP, right? This does not make sense at all. ठीक है? तो सबसे जरूरी बात जो आपको ध्यान रखनी है, right? वो ये है कि जितने भी relevant details हैं आपकी SOP में, आपकी CV में, आपके resume में, make sure कि जितनी चीजें जा रही हैं, they are relevant, right? What do you mean by relevant? कई बार एक कॉमन क्वेश्चन होता है स्टूडेंट्स का कि how do we decide if we should add this detail or not? How do I decide if I want to include this information or not? Right? What is the one way to do it? The best way you can do this is what? Ask this question yourself. Right? Ask this question to yourself. If I add this detail, are my chances increasing or decreasing? If your chances are increasing, if you mention that detail, and if your chances of getting selected increase, then you should definitely add it. Right? If your chances are not increasing, which means if they are decreasing, obviously आप उसको add नहीं करो. Right? Another example, let me just give it to you. Let's say that you're going to you're applied to this company for the role of what? An engineer. Right? Petroleum engineer is going to be your job. You're applying to that role, and you're telling me that you are a very good hockey player. Right? So do you think mentioning that you are an exceptionally good hockey player makes sense in this conversation? Not really. Right? Because your ability to play hockey has nothing to do with your expertise in petroleum engineering. Right? But having said that, अगर वो आपकी hobby है, if that is something that you feel very strongly about, if hockey has taught you a lot of things like team spirit, working in a team, right, being physically fit, if it has taught you all of those things, please add them. Right? So every time you are confused whether to add a detail or not, Ask this question to yourself: that is this going to help me in my interview? If the answer is yes, please add that detail. If the answer is no, if it is not going to help you in an interview, you can just forget that detail and not add anything at all. Okay, so that is another thing that you have to remember as far as your SOP is concerned. Yeah. Moving on from there, again, I'm not sure how many people are able to relate to this, right? But how many cricket fans here? We can just do a show of hands. How many people watch cricket? How many people follow cricket? कितने लोग cricket को follow करते हैं? Okay, a lot of people doing show of hands. Okay, great, fantastic. Which also means that you would have seen the legendary press conferences that happen after Pakistan's cricket match, right? आपने बहुत commonly देखा होगा, right? Nothing about them, nothing offensive about it. English is not a common language everywhere, which is why we don't really speak that language well, which is just fine. Nothing, no problem there. लेकिन एक चीज जो आपको ध्यान रखनी है वो ये है कि whenever there is somebody addressing, right? Whenever there is somebody from the Pakistan team addressing, you will see that there are a lot of mistakes being made, right? Language में बहुत सारी गलतियां होती है. Make sure in your SOP or in your resume or in your CV, you are not making grammatical mistakes, right? What do you mean by grammatical mistakes? For example, you look at the first one here. I is work hard. I'm sure कोई ऐसा करेगा नहीं, ये थोड़ा exaggeration है, right? I is work hard, ये नहीं बोलना है. Another very commonly made mistake. Please revert back to me as soon as you can. Now, this is a very commonly made mistake on your CV, on your emails. It's a very, very commonly made mistake, right? What is the mistake? Revert or back. ये दो words कभी साथ में नहीं आएंगे. Always remember this, right? Revert and back are the two words that should not come together. Likewise, words like return and back should also not come together, right? If those words are coming up, then obviously there is a problem. ठीक है, तो ये दोनों words एक साथ नहीं आने चाहिए. ये दोनों ऐसे words हैं which do not require both of them together on the same sentence. So please ignore or please avoid using these words with each other, right? कई बार ऐसा होता है, you are sincerely, obediently, absolutely, पता नहीं क्या क्या लिख देते हैं, right? आप जब email end करते हो, right? When you write an email, the last thing that you generally write in an email is yours sincerely, right? Your honesty, yours faithfully, etc., etc. ठीक है, तो वहां पर ध्यान रखना है कि sincerely का spelling सही है, obediently का spelling सही है, absolutely कुछ होता नहीं है, just read it up. But please remember this thing, right? Please do not make grammatical mistakes, right? These days there are umpteen number of tools available, and I'm sure आप लोग सबने Grammarly के बारे में सुना होगा, right? You just put your sentence on Grammarly, you should be able to get the grammatically correct version, right? अगर कोई गलती होती है, अगर छोटा मोटा कुछ भी होता है, please make sure you're putting it on some online checking tool so that your grammar is basically sensitized, right? This is one thing that is extremely important. Grammar वाली गलतियां आपके SOP में नहीं होनी चाहिए. At the same time, there are also certain mistakes which are very common. I just told you sometime back that they are not going to judge you based on your English. But at the same time, when you're writing something, please make sure at least it is correct. Words difficult again, they are perfectly okay. You don't have a great vocabulary, it is perfectly okay, right? But please make sure that whatever you are writing, that is factually correct, and please make sure it is grammatically correct. And there are hundreds of ways in which you can make that check, which you can do that check. Okay, so that is again another thing. Make sure that grammar वाली गलतियां आपके एग्जाम में या rather आपके SOP में आप नहीं कर रहे हो, right? It's a very commonly made mistake. Now, moving on from there, again, we will just make a quick summary of the common mistakes that you see. Right? I can actually switch on the lights. You can just tell me if switching off the lights is better, right? Let me just switch it off. Is this better, or do you think we need the lights?
It's better, I think, sir.
Yeah, this one is better, right? Cool. So again, these are some of the common mistakes that we just discussed, right? What is the first mistake we talked about? The first mistake is that we don't really have to be apologetic about finding a job. We don't really have to sound like a slave, right? आपकी गलती नहीं है कि आप जॉब ढूंढने आ रहे हो, और ऐसा भी नहीं है कि एक्स्ट्रा पोलाइट हो जाओगे तो कोई नौकरी दे देगा आपको, right? Let me be extra polite. Let me be, very formal so that I'll get the job. No, yeah, being formal is good. Being polite also is good. But just because you're extra polite, it doesn't mean somebody will give you a job, right? Second, coming across as a show off, right? Again, we just talked about it, just talking on and on, just talking about those achievements, just talking about your things for the sake of saying, or just making up your achievements, again, is not going to give you that job, right? So please do not come across as show off. Please be very careful in what is the language that you're putting it out. Yeah. Again, using too many difficult words to impress. See, if there is somebody who has to be impressed by your SOP, they will read it and they will get impressed looking at your credentials, looking at your academics, looking at your work experience, looking at your hobbies and all of that. Right? You don't really have to use difficult words just for the sake of improving, right? Or just for the sake of impressing. Yeah. Likewise, not being expressive enough. हमने अभी बात किया था, right? It is very, very important for you to still give away all the important details, right? SOP में कुछ basic details आपकी हमेशा जाननी चाहिए. क्या है वो details? Obviously, we will talk about it. But please be very careful in terms of what you're putting. But at the same time, also be careful about the fact that your SOP should have a lot of details. Your resume, your CV should definitely have a lot of details. Right? ये मत सोचना कि details नहीं है तो interview आसानी से निकल. Right? Sharing irrelevant details, again, very commonly made mistake. Something which is not relevant, something that is not going to help you, right? Something which is not in any way helping you get selected should not ideally be required on the SOP. Right? It just defeats the overall purpose. Yeah. Then we have making grammatical mistakes. इसके बारे में I guess हमने already बात किया, right? Just a while back. A lot of people make a lot of mistakes when it comes to grammar. Please be very particular that you're not making complicated mistakes. Okay? Like I was just saying, you can just get your grammar corrected. Word के अंदर एक feature होता है जिसको कहते हैं spelling and grammar check. या तो फिर आप लोग Grammarly या कोई और website भी इस्तेमाल कर सकते हो, whatever you guys are using. But please make sure that there are no basic grammatical mistakes in your sentences. Yeah. So that's just a summary of mistakes that most people make. Now the question that I'm sure all of you would have is that आपने ये तो बता दिया कि SOP में क्या नहीं होना चाहिए, right? But what about SOP में क्या होना चाहिए? What should ideally go into that SOP? Right? That's one thing which is extremely important, right? So let's look at the next slide and ask this question yourself. Can one of you tell me what should be the answer here? What should the SOP address? What should the SOP have? हमने ये बात कर लिया SOP में क्या नहीं होना चाहिए या क्या चीजों की ध्यान रखनी चाहिए, right? Now please tell me the answer to this particular question.
All of the above.
Okay, we can do a show of hands again. The question here is this, in case if you're not able to read, the question is, what should the SOP address, right? What exactly should be there in your SOP? The first option is introduction. The second option is, why do you want to work for this company? The third option is, why should you be hired? And the fourth option is all of the above. How many people think the answer is option one? Just option one. We can do a show of hands. People who think the answer is option one. Okay. People who think the answer is option two. The SOP should address, why do I want to work for this company? Let's do a show of hands. Anyone? Okay, no. Anybody for option three? Why should I be hired? The SOP should be about why I should be hired, why I should be selected, why I should be given this job. Any show of hands? Anybody who thinks the answer is option three? No? Okay, great. Anybody for option four? All of the above. We can do a show of hands. Okay, we can clearly see a lot of people are raising their hands, right? So that's clearly very evident, right? This is exactly what your SOP is basically about, right? So when you sit down to write your SOP, right? Let's say somebody is telling you कि SOP लिखना है इस particular company के लिए, इस particular job के लिए, you should just ask three questions to yourself. The first question is your introduction. If I ask you, how would you introduce yourself? Please tell me something about yourself. What are the things you would want to tell me? Right? That's your first question. Ask that question to yourself. What are the details you would want me to know? I am the recruiter. I am the person who will decide if you will get the job. You are the applicant. Decide what is it that you want me to know. Right? That's the first question. Second question that you will address again is, why do you want to work for this company? Right? Let me give us a very normal example. Let's say that again you want to work for this company called Indian Oil Corporation Limited, IOCL. Right? You want to work with IOCL. Why do you want to work with them? So your answer could be this company is, very well. It's a Maharatna company. It's a government enterprise. There are a lot of benefits. The salary is very good. The exposure is very good. There is job stability. All of these reasons could be there, right? So those are your reasons why you want to work for that company, right? That's the second question you will ask yourself. That why do you want to work for this company? And you will make sure that that part is there in your SOP. Okay. Third question. The third question you will ask yourself is, why should I be hired? Ask this question yourself. अब यहाँ पर हमारे पास जितने लोग attend कर रहे हैं, there are about 35 people here, right? About 42 people over here, right? So if you have, let's say there are 45 people applying to a job, what makes each one of us unique, right? What are your strengths? What are your qualities? What do you think are the reasons why you should get selected? That exactly has to come here. Why should you be hired, right? Because I'll be very honest, I don't want to, demoralize anybody here. But if I'm looking at all of your CVs, a great deal of information is going to remain the same, right? That the kind of subjects that you're studying in college, right? The certificate programs that you're doing, the skills that you might have, most of these things are going to be very, very common, right? So how do you differentiate yourself, right? One way of doing that is basically by answering this question, why should I be hired, right? So just summarizing what we just talked about, whenever you write your SOP, just ask 3 questions. The first question is, what do I tell when somebody asks me to introduce myself? Right? Second question, why do I want to work for this company? What is great about this job? Why do I want to do this job? That's number 2. Right? And number 3 is, why should I be hired? There are 50 people applied for the job, 60 people, 70 people, 100 people who applied for the job. What makes me unique? What are the good things about me which the company will be beneficial of if they select me? Right? Ask these 3 questions. The template of your SOP is going to be in this, right? That's the first thing that you have to do. Let's look at the next slide. We just talked about this, right? Who you are, right? So an SOP is nothing but 3 things. Who you are, what you want to work, why you want to work for this company, and what makes you suitable for this particular role. What is so special about you? What is so good about you? Why should you be selected? These are the 3 questions we address. Now let's talk about the first question there in detail, right? अगर मैं आपको पूछता हूँ कि please introduce yourself, please tell me more about yourself. आप लोग क्या बोलोगे, right? Everybody will come up with certain standard answers, and those standard answers are going to be around these pointers, right? आप लोग में से आप लोग academics की बात करोगे, आप लोग projects की बात करोगे, research paper की बात करोगे, in case if you publish any research paper, right? You will talk about your internships if you have interned somewhere, any other work experience that you have. Right? You will talk about your certifications, right? You will talk about your mission, and you will talk about the story that binds it all. But let's focus on these parts. Okay? We'll talk about this first part, which is your project on your research paper. How many people here who are working on a research paper right now? We can again do a show of hands. Working with your teachers, your faculty members on some research paper, on some publication. कोई ऐसे पेपर पे काम कर रहा है जो आप सबमिट करोगे अपने किसी जर्नल में, किसी कोई और बुक में, कोई और मैगजीन में. Anybody here working on a research paper? A show of hands would help. Okay, I can see one person.
So not currently, but in the future I'm looking to.
I'm sorry, Raj. Could you please say that again? I was not able to hear you.
So currently I'm not into it, but I'm looking forward to it in the coming time.
All right. So which again is a very, very important point, right? Like Raj said, he's looking forward to do that. So if you get an opportunity, right, in your college, if you get an opportunity to work with your faculty members on some research paper, please participate, right? अगर आपका प्लान है अपने ही फील्ड में, अपने ही area of interest में career बनाने का, if you want to go ahead and be a petroleum engineer, or if you want to go deeper in your field, writing a research paper, helping a faculty member with their research work or a paper or a journal or a publication is going to be extremely helpful, right? Please put that. Anybody here who's preparing for, somebody who wants to pursue education overseas? Anybody planning to go overseas? Again, we can do a show of hands. Okay, we have a few people raising their hands. Okay, great. ठीक है. So अगर आप बाहर जाने का सोच रहे हो, and again, how many people wanting to go outside of India and pursue some technical program, not do an MBA, but pursue something very similar to what you're doing right now, Can we do a show of hands? People want to go overseas, but people getting deeper into what they're doing right now. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, nice. Okay, we have 3 or 4 people who are planning to do that, right? So please make sure, again, SOP is not something that can be made overnight, right? If you want to build a good SOP, if you want to build a good resume, if you want to build a good CV, the work has to start much before than when you require it. So if you want to go overseas, again, right, and if you want to pursue some course which is relevant to what you're doing right now, research paper is the best way to convince people that you have contributed more than what was required, right? Because अगर मैं आप सबका curriculum निकालूंगा, all of you are studying the same subjects, right? The only difference is going to be आपका score क्या बनने वाला है, आपका क्या score आने वाला है towards the end of 4 years, right? So if you really want to stand out, please work on more number of research papers, work on different types of magazines, publications, etc., etc. And I'm sure your faculty members are doing that. So please add on to that. Okay, that's number 1. Right. Internships. How many people? I'm assuming internship is mandatory right now, right? When in your college also internship is mandatory, right? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, internship is mandatory, which is great. How many people have internship experiences? People who worked at different. I mean, how many people who have worked in an internship, which has nothing to do with mines, nothing to do with petroleum engineering, but some very different field? Can we do a show of hands? People who have not interned in a company which is relevant to petroleums, relevant to mines, relevant to engineering. Any other kind of internship experience, anyone? We can do a show of hands. All right, Raj has an experience. Raj, what kind of an experience is that? Where did you intern?
So it was in the human factors department of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, but it not related to petroleum engineering. It was about the human factors, including it into the every domain of life, so that we can have an optimization of the human work.
Okay. I also see Swaraj has raised his hand. Swaraj, what was your internship about? Swaraj, I'm not able to hear you. In case if you're speaking, I guess you're speaking on mute. Okay, not sure. I think he's raised his hand, but not sure. So I think like Raj said, right? So a few of us, I mean, most of us have internship experience. Some of us have an experience which is not directly related to what we're doing, but internships become extremely important, right? But problem kya hai bata? What are the 5 things? Okay, forget 5 things. What are the 3 things that you learned from your internship? Can we have somebody who can help us with that answer? If I say that you have to tell me 3 things that you have learned from your internship in just 3 sentences, 1 learning, 1 sentence. Likewise, if somebody is able to tell me 3 sentences about their internship experience, anybody like that who would like to volunteer? What have you learned from your internship? Just 3 sentences. Anyone?
So it is the communication part, like
Okay.
the soft skills, like
Okay.
Microsoft Excel and Microsoft PowerPoint. Second
Okay.
could be the technical skill through which we are doing the intern. And
Okay.
third can be the teamwork or the leadership skills if you get an opportunity to do that.
Great. That helps, right? So I think what Raj is saying is basically tools, computer tools, right? So Excel, PowerPoint, Word, etc., right? Second is obviously the technical part of the job. What is it that you're doing at the end of the day there? What are your technical deliverables there? That's the second thing that you might have learned. The third thing is obviously the team factor, which is more about your soft skills and the way you manage people, you deal with people and all of that, right? So these are 3 important things, but please remember this thing. When you say that you have learned certain technical skills in your internship, what has been the end outcome, right? What has been the end outcome? So let me give an example here. Let's say that I was working as a fire and safety engineer, right? I'm just giving a random example. If I was working or if I've interned as a fire and safety engineer, what has been the outcome of my job? I can say that maybe I prevented an accident that could have cost hundreds of lives. Or maybe I prevented an accident which could have cost the company hundreds of crores of rupees. Right? Now that is something that is tangible. Right? Let's say I was was working as a maintenance engineer, right? And my job was to make sure that the maintenance activity was happening very well. My job was to make sure that the shutdown in plants that was happening in a very seamless way, right? So how do I say it? I can say that because of me, we were able to reduce the startup time of the plant from 10 days to maybe 7 or 8 days. So that's 3 days saved for the company, right? That is 72 hours saved for the company, right? So please make sure that whenever you are talking about your internships, whenever you're talking about your work experiences, please be very, very outcome oriented. What came out of it? A lot of these people will say that I have interned at IOC, I have interned at ABC, I have interned at XYZ. They will come across with all these terms, all these names. But what did you exactly do there? What has been the outcome? Please put that out. And please put it out in a way that anybody who reads it is able to understand it, even if they may not be from your background. Right? So if you are telling me that you saved hundreds of crores of rupees, or if you saved time, or if you saved the efforts of people, again, that is tangible. Any common person will be able to understand that. Right? So please be very particular when you talk about your internship and write your internship experience in this way, trying to answer this specific question. Cool. Certification programs. I don't know if your curriculum has it, but do you guys have certificate programs in your college? Is there a certificate program in your college wherein somebody from outside comes up and they give you some additional programs to work on, and when you pass that exam, they give you a certificate? Is there anything like that happens in your college?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We do have this.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So technically speaking, a certificate program should help you stand out. But let's say if there are, say, 30 people here, right? And if everybody is doing that certification, then there is nothing unique about it, right? So whenever you are in college, right, and let's say that you want to pursue, go deeper in your area of specialization, please find out what are some of the industry certifications that are available, right? And if you know what those certifications are, try and pursue at least the first few, at least at the basic level. That is going to help you immensely. You come across a lot of cases where people are pursuing something like a Six Sigma certificate, right? Project management, right? Product management. You come across all of these certifications. So whatever is relevant for you, please pursue that, and please make sure you're putting it out on your CV as well. Yeah. A very common word. Can somebody help us understand what exactly is your mission? Like, what do you mean by mission? Very commonly asked question, right? A lot of companies have their mission and vision statement. So कई बार हम बोलते हैं कि company का mission है या उसका vision statement है, right? These are two completely different things, right? But let's put it this way. And there's a very commonly asked HR question also, right? That where do you see yourselves 5 years down the line? What do you want to do 10 years down the line? Very, very common question, right? But let's put it this way. If you are studying in ISM, IIT Dhanbad, and if you are into Department of Petroleum Engineering, I'm sure you have some visibility about what you want to do at the end of your tenure, right? या तो आपको इसमें आगे जाना होगा, या तो आपको इससे बाहर निकलना होगा. But कुछ तो आपका plan होगा, right? That plan has to go in your SOP. That plan has to go in who you are answering that question. Okay. Last and most importantly, this is something that is very close to my heart, which is the story, right? Now, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, if you look at the kind of posts that I make, right, or the kind of articles that I write, the kind of posts that I put up, though they are very, very narrative focused, right? There is a great deal of storytelling that is happening, especially the longer form content, right? Why am I doing that? Because at the end of the day, your SOP is your story, right? That story has to sell really well. So it has to be told in a particular fashion. It has to be told in a particular manner, right? And which is basically what I also specialize in, right? So when your college people got in touch with me, this is one thing that we are having a conversation about, right? That what is SOP, what is CV, what is it? All three of them are about storytelling, but again, story told in very different formats, right? So what I'm trying to tell you here is this, that all these things that you're putting out on your SOP, they really have to come out in the form of a CV. They have to come out in the form of a story. If it comes out that way, it really makes your job a lot easier. It just helps you sell yourselves much, much better. Okay. So try focusing on getting a CV, basically, or try focusing on getting a story in place, right? And again, if you need some sort of a help to do that, if you think that you are not able to come up with your story, again, you can reach out to a lot of people. I'm also somebody who specializes in writing stories. Right? And this is the personal brand story that I'm talking about. This is not Chetan Bhattacharya story, just to set the context right here. Okay. Moving on from there, that's the first question we had. But I have another question here for you. If not for money, would you be here? Right? Let's say that there is no concept of money, right? Would you still have joined an IIT? How many people say कि पैसा नहीं होता तो भी हम IIT join करते? Can we do a show of hands? And just honest answers. It just makes more sense. Okay, 2 people, 3 people. Okay, 3 people have raised their hands. अगर पैसा नहीं होता तो भी they would have joined. Okay, that is nice. Okay, how many people say कि पैसे की बात नहीं होगी, IIT की बात नहीं होती तो IIT आते ही नहीं. पैसे की बात नहीं होती तो हम IIT में नहीं आते. Can we do a show of hands? ये तो पैसा है, ब्रांड नेम है, इसीलिए हम आए हैं IIT में. अदरवाइज पैसा नहीं होता तो हम नहीं आते. Okay, 4 people have raised their hands, which is great, fantastic. Anybody who goes to the third point, I mean, how do you care? I mean, why do you care about money? मेरी आत्मा तो यहाँ है, मैं तो सीखने आया हूँ, right? I am a part of the bigger picture. Humanity depends upon me. A lot of these people making all these things, that's fine. So what I'm trying to tell you here is this. A lot of us are motivated by money. A lot of us are motivated by brands. A lot of us want to work with those companies that pay us really well, which is perfectly fine. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it, right? But there are also a lot of us, like we just saw, the people who are not motivated only by money. There are people who are not motivated only by the brand value of that company, but they want to look something beyond that, right? What do we call those people? And for them, the next section is important. It is this. So second question था आपके SOP में, जो second part है आपके SOP का, then why do you want to work for this company? That is an extremely important question. ये question आपका SOP बना सकता है. ये part आपके SOP को बिगाड़ भी सकता है. This is the most important section. Please be very careful here. Right? Why do you want to work for this company? Maybe the answer is money. They pay you really well. The answer is exposure. Maybe they are helping you travel to different cities, different countries, get to meet a lot of people. Exposure. Maybe you are very passionate about petroleum engineering. Okay, let me pose another question. When we were children, when let's say there are 38 people here, 37 people here. Of the 37 people, how many people really wanted to be petroleum engineers when they were children? कितने लोगों को petroleum engineer बनना था even before coming to the IIT? Can we do a show of hands? How many people wanted to be petroleum engineers when they were children? Hardly anybody, right? Hardly anybody. Okay, we see people even leaving, looking at that question. So what generally happens is this: we are not doing something because we were really passionate about it, but we are doing certain things because again, ठीक लग रहा है, पैसे हैं, brand value है, etc. So that can also be the reason, right? Passion can also be the reason why you want to work for that company. You are really interested in that field. That can become your reason, right? Why do you want to work for your company? Clients. That company has very good clients. You go to any company website, you look at their clients, you will see who they work with. And if they work with really good clients, you would want to be a part of that, right? Again, that company's brand value is important. That company is very well reputed. So having that company on your CV will make your CV more attractive, more lucrative for recruiters. And maybe that is why you want to work for that company. Company's culture is very good. These days, again, if you open LinkedIn, right? If you have a LinkedIn profile, which I strongly recommend that all of you should have a profile on LinkedIn, I'll come back to it later. But if you look at LinkedIn, if you look at what people are posting, people are being very, very particular about culture, right? And when I say culture, this has become all the more important after the pandemic, right? Can anybody tell us? I'm not sure. Have you heard the term Great Resignation? Anybody here who knows what Great Resignation is? We can just do a show of hands.
Sir, I think I know it. It was in the United States after the COVID era. People started to resign, so there were a lot of vacancies there. There was a shortage of supply.
Absolutely. Like I said, right? A lot of people, primarily in the United States, primarily in the West, they resigned, and which is why it was called as Great Resignation. Why did people resign? Because they wanted to look at things beyond their job. People are prioritizing their jobs, not their jobs, their families, their health, their mental well-being, right? Being close to their parents, being close to their families, being close to their children. That is what people are prioritizing, which is why a lot of people were also leaving their jobs. Okay? Which is the one thing that you have to remember very carefully. The culture in a company is very important, right? Extremely important. You talk to people about Tata Group companies. Most Tata Group companies, I will not make a generalized statement. but most Tata Group companies are very renowned for their culture. Google is very much renowned for its culture, right? So a culture can also be a very strong reason why you want to work for a company. और ये वो बात है जो लोग अपने SOP में नहीं लिखते हैं, right? People just forget about mentioning culture. So if you want your SOP to stand out, please make sure that you are talking about culture. Okay? Tell the recruiter that you want to work for this company because the culture of that company is good, assuming that the culture is good, right? So that becomes extremely important over here. Fourth point, I'm sure कई लोगों ने देखा होगा, एसोसिएट किया होगा, इस कंपनी में काम करना है बिकॉज़ सोसाइटी बोलती है कंपनी बहुत अच्छी है, राइट? हमारे नेबर का बेटा, चाचा का बेटा, ताया का बेटा, मामा का बेटा वर्क्स फॉर दिस कंपनी, इसलिए हमको भी काम करना है. हमारे रिश्तेदार हैं, रिश्तेदारों को लगता है कि अगर IIT से इंजीनियरिंग करी है तो गूगल में काम करना जरूरी है, Amazon में काम करना जरूरी है, काम करिए, राइट? एंड अगेन माँ बाप की इज्जत की पे बात आ जाती है, ओ बट आपके बेटे ने क्या किया, आपके बेटे ने कहाँ जॉब किया, those kind of things that all of us are aware of, right? And happens in our society. Those can also be your reasons, but ये reason आप अपने SOP में नहीं डाल सकते हो. तो आपके SOP वाले reasons ये और ये हो सकते हैं, focusing on culture, focusing on clients, right? So the next time you write your SOP, under the section of why this company, why you want to work for this company, make sure you're talking about culture, make sure you're talking about clients, right? Because a lot of people don't do that. You should do that. Yeah. Third part, again, before that, we'll go to another question. बहुत commonly पूछते हैं interview में, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? If I ask you this question, what is your most important strength? Right? What do you think is your most important strength? We can do a show of hands. How many people think their ability to work hard is their strongest strength? A show of hands. 1, 2, okay. 3, 4. Okay, a lot of people raising their hands. Okay, 5, 6, okay. 7 people, okay. 8 people have raised their hands. They say that their ability to work hard is their strongest strength, which is fantastic. How many people say that honesty is their most important strength? People who say honesty is their most important strength. Okay. 7 people have raised their hands, which is good. Okay, 10 people have raised their hands. Fantastic. Okay, last part. How many people say that sincerity is their most important strength? Sincerity is the most important strength. Okay. Okay, 7 people in all. 11 people. Okay, great. How many people think they have all three? Honestly speaking, people who think they have all three: ability to work hard, honesty, sincerity. People who say that we have all of these three strengths. Okay, 8 people have raised their hands. Okay, 10 people have raised their hands. Fine. Okay. Fantastic. I'll tell you why I put up this question here. Okay. आपने देखा बहुत सारे लोगों ने हाथ ऊपर किया, अराउंड 10-11 क्वेश्चंस में 10 से 11 लोगों ने एवरी क्वेश्चन के लिए हाथ ऊपर किया, राइट? What does it tell us? It tells us one thing very important when it comes to human behavior. It tells us something very crucial about human psychology. What it tells us is, कोई भी ये नहीं बोलेगा कि वो आलसी है, कोई भी ये नहीं बोलेगा कि वो ऑनेस्ट नहीं है, राइट? कोई भी ये नहीं बोलेगा कि वो सिंसियर नहीं है, कामचोर है, कोई नहीं बोलेगा. Everybody will say, I am sincere, I am hardworking, I am honest. So please make sure in your SOP, right? Whenever you write your SOP, please make sure when you write your strength, do not say I am sincere, I am honest, I am hardworking. ये चीजें तो है ही. Everybody assumes you are honest, you are sincere, and you are hardworking. It is not a USP anymore. Please remember this. Right? बहुत commonly लोग ये लिखते हैं. People just use this again and again and again, but it does not add up to any value. Okay? There are other things that you should be writing about when it comes to your most important strength. It has to be something beyond that. We will talk about it, but let's move on to the next part. This is the third part of your SOP, right? That why should you be selected? हमने पहले बात किया your introduction. We talked about why you want to work for that company, and then we talked about why should you be selected. तो उसके बहुत सारे reasons हो सकते हैं. The first reason is your strength, right? Second reason is there are a few weaknesses that you have, because obviously we are all human beings. We will have strengths, we will also have weaknesses, right? Why should you be selected? Another answer could be your hard skills. So when Raj was giving this answer, he used the word called technical skills. Technical skills are basically your hard skills required to do your job. अगर आप पेट्रोलियम इंजीनियर बनते हो तो पेट्रोलियम की नॉलेज आपको होनी चाहिए, right? That is part of your hard skill, right? But at the same time, he also said something like team management, team building, right? That is your soft skill, which is again your ability to deal with people, right? The way you write your emails, right? How you are able to handle difficult situations, how you are able to negotiate. All of these are your soft skills. Okay. So when I say why should you be selected, the answer has to be a combination of both these two things, right? Your strength, your weakness, your hard skill, and your soft skill. There are a lot of people who say I'm cute, right? How many people think they're cute? Just on a funny note, on a fun note. How many people say they're cute? We can do a show of hands. I will not ask you why you think you're cute. So you don't have to be worried about it, but can we do a show of hands? How many people think they're cute? Okay. How many people think that they're beautiful? Okay. Men, women both put together, right? How many people think they're beautiful, they're good looking, they're smart? Again, just do a show of hands. People who think they're smart, again, show of hands. Nobody? Okay, 1, 2. Okay, 3, fine. Okay, 3 people think they're smart. Okay, what about the others? The others are not listening. They've passed out. They got bored, right? Or they're just too lazy to raise their hands. Anyway, another question. And again, we will try to wrap up the conversation around that, right? How many people are confident? No, let me rephrase that. How many people think that they are nice human beings? How many people think they are nice human beings? 1, 2, okay. 3, okay, nice. Okay, 16 people have raised their hands. Fantastic. So you people don't think you are cute, right? Okay, 21 people have raised their hands. All of them think that they're all nice people. Fantastic, fantastic. So what I'm looking at is this, right? A lot of these people say, none of you think that you're cute, right? A lot of you don't think that you are good looking, beautiful, right? Few people, 2 or 3 of you think that you're smart, but about 20 people think that you are nice human beings, right? Now that is one thing that I want all of you to remember. आप लोग अगर मेरे सामने बैठे होते, right? तो मैं आपके चरण छू लेता. Please remember this. When you sit for an interview, when you write an SOP, when you write your resume, when you write your CV, you have to cheer for yourself, right? You have to stand up for yourself. You have to say good things about yourself. हाँ, मैंने आपको बोला कि बहुत ज़्यादा बना नहीं बोलना है, agreed, right? But in an interview, in a conversation with a recruiter, that person is going to speak with you only for 15 or 20 minutes, right? There, whenever your SOP goes to that person, what do you think is the average time they're looking at it? They read it only for about 10 or 15 seconds. If they have the time, maybe another 20-25 seconds, not more than that, right? So you have to think that you are a good person. You have to think that you are smart. If you don't think you are smart, there is no way that you are going to be smart anyway, right? I'm not saying you have to fake, right? I'm not saying that you have to be somebody that you're not. I'm not saying any of that. But you have to believe in yourself, right? Please be your biggest cheerleader. You will require that so much in whatever job you get into, right? That is one thing that is extremely, extremely crucial, right? Please remember this thing very carefully, right? Please cheer for yourself, please route for yourself, right? So that's the last part about why should you be selected. How many people here play sports? How many people play hockey? Just a show of hands. People who play hockey or people who have played hockey in their school, outside. Okay, how many people have played badminton or still play badminton? Okay, quite a few number of people play badminton, which is good, great. All right, how many people play chess? People who play chess, indoor game like chess. Okay, that is nice. How many people play kabaddi? Okay, people who play kabaddi, okay. 4 of you. Great, okay. How many people have won an Olympiad, something like that, some academic? How many people have won a scholarship, an Olympiad, or something like that? Gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal in academics. Anybody who's won awards in academics? Again, a lot of people raising their hands, which is great. 4 or 5 people. Okay. Fantastic, fantastic. So what I'm trying to tell you here is this, right? This is the crux of our conversation, right? I'm sure all of you are really bright students, which is why you got into an IIT in the first place, right? And again, that too, one of the oldest colleges, ISM, Indian School of Mines, is very well known. Later made into an IIT, right? So I'm sure all of you have done well in some or the other field. Maybe you're good at academics, maybe you're good at sports. आपने बहुत सारी अलग-अलग चीजें करी होंगी. आप जो भी करते हो उस पे नंबर्स डालने शुरू करो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप कह रहे हो कि आपको गोल्ड मेडल मिला, राइट, स्कूल में 12th स्टैंडर्ड में आपको गोल्ड मेडल मिला, तो प्लीज टेल मी कि कितने बच्चे थे आपके स्कूल में जिनमें से आपको गोल्ड मेडल मिला, राइट? अगर आप मुझे ये बता रहे हो कि आपने बैडमिंटन खेला है नेशनल लेवल पर, प्लीज बताओ कौन सी लेवल पर खेला है, नेशनल लेवल पर खेला है, राइट? प्लीज टेल मी कितनी बार आप फाइनल में आए हो, राइट? कितनी बार आप सेमीफाइनल में आए हो? अगर आप जीते भी नहीं हो, प्लीज टेल मी द स्पेसिफिक इंस्टेंसेस, प्लीज टेल मी द स्पेसिफिक काउंट्स, राइट? Nothing is more important than quantifying your achievements. अगर आप मुझे बोलोगे कि आपने कोई कंपटीशन में फर्स्ट प्राइज जीता है, और अगर मान लेते हैं अगर सारे मिलाकर अगर 4-5 लोग ही थे उसमें अगर आप फर्स्ट आए हो तो कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है, right? When you give me numbers, it will help me put things into perspective. I will understand what was the scope of competition, what number of people were there, what is the amount of effort that is required. I get to know all of these things, right? So please be very particular when you are putting your achievements. Quote your achievements in your SOP, but please give the context, right? Try to quantify your achievements कि आपने achieve किया तो किस context में किया और कितना achieve किया, right? That is extremely important, because I saw a lot of people have done a lot of things. Please put those things in perspective. That is extremely crucial, right? Which is basically what the slide is about, right? Use numbers. State outcomes. Like I just told you, right? You've interned at some place, you've worked at some place. What is the final impact that you made? आपकी वजह से कंपनी को क्या फायदा हुआ, आपकी वजह से कितने लोगों के पैसे बच गए, राइट? प्लीज टेल मी those specific numbers, please tell me those specific outcomes, and that is going to help you immensely, right? Because then the person reading your CV will understand things in a perspective, right? And that person could be an HR, may not be from the same background as you, right? So it's important for them to understand what you're saying. Yeah. Some last few questions, and we'll try to close in the next 5 minutes. What do you think? Is an SOP mandatory? After this conversation, please tell me, what do you think? Is an SOP mandatory or not? How many people think yes, SOP is mandatory, is important, is required? We can do a show of hands. 1, 2, 3, okay, 4. Okay, 5 people have raised their hands. 5 people, okay, 7 people have raised their hands. Okay. Okay, great. 6 people, 7 people have raised their hands. They say SOP is important. How many people think that CV is enough, resume is enough, SOP is not required? People who say that CV is enough, resume is enough, SOP की जरूरत नहीं है. Can we do a show of hands? SOP required नहीं है. How many people there? Okay, 2, 3. Okay, nice. Okay, 3 people have raised their hands. They're saying that SOP is not mandatory. Only CV or resume is required. How many people for the last option? It depends. How many people think कि कभी CV चाहिए होता है, कभी resume चाहिए होता है, कभी SOP required होता है, कभी नहीं required होता है? Depends. How many people for depends? Okay, a lot of people raising their hands for depends. 5 people have raised their hands for depends. Okay, sure. Which is actually the answer? ठीक है? SOP mandatory है नहीं है? It actually depends upon what job. It actually depends upon what role, right? And obviously what company, right? But it always helps to invest in an SOP because you have right? And again, if we, your college and I, if we decide to engage further, we can talk about these things in greater detail. But an SOP is certain, in on certain occasions, one of the most important things when you're applying for a job. It is very important, right? In certain jobs, again, they don't really expect an SOP, right? They just expect you to put a CV or a resume. So depending upon that, you can take it up. Okay? Another question that I have for you guys. अगर आप कह रहे हो कि SOP required है, this is especially for people who said that SOP is required. What do you think an SOP does that a CV cannot? ऐसा क्या होता है SOP में जो CV नहीं कर सकता है, right? First option helps you be more expressive. How many people for option 1? People who believe that SOP will help you express yourselves better. Okay, 3, 4 people. Okay, nice. Okay, 6 people have raised their hands, which is great. People who say that SOP will help you with your writing skills. How many people think that SOP helps us with our writing skills? Writing skill दिखाने के लिए SOP की जरूरत होती है. How many people for second option? No. Okay, which is very, very strange. The reality is it is both, right? It helps you be more expressive, of course. It also helps you with your writing skills. कई बार ऐसा होगा कि आपके जॉब में आपको शायद करने की बहुत जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन ऐसे बहुत सारे जॉब्स होते हैं जहाँ पर writing becomes mandatory and there SOP becomes very crucial, right? Just a parting tip on a parting note I would like to tell you, please learn how to write emails, right? Email writing is extremely, extremely important. आपकी आधी जिंदगी अगर आप जॉब कर रहे हो तो ईमेल पे ही जाने वाली है, right? और MBA वगैरह करोगे तो और खास, right? पूरा ईमेल का ही खेल होता है, right? There will be absolutely bright people reading your emails, but there will be absolutely stupid people also reading your emails. Your email has to be appealing to both. अब वो आपको करना है कि कैसे करना है, वो आपके ऊपर है, right? आप कितना सीखते हो, कैसे करते हो, आपके ऊपर है, right? But again, email writing is very, very crucial, right? That's just on a side note. Last question: what is the ideal length of an SOP? कई लोगों ने बोला SOP mandatory है, SOP बहुत अच्छी चीज है, SOP लिखना जरूरी है. What is the ideal length? 300 words. How many people for 300 words? We can do a show of hands. 300 word ka SOP is good. How many people believe that? Okay, 500 words. People think 500 words is enough in an SOP. Okay, 4 people have raised their hands, which is good. Okay, how many people think 1000 words? The bigger the better. How many people for 1000 words? 7 people have raised their hands. Okay, 4 people. Okay, which is nice. And finally, how many people think it all depends? Length of the SOP is very, very subjective. How many people think SOP is very, very subjective? Which is actually the case. ठीक है? आंसर डिपेंड करता है कंपनी के रिक्वायरमेंट के ऊपर. अगर आप लिंक्डइन पर जॉब अप्लाई करते हो तो कई बार कंपनीज आपको लगभग 300-400 वर्ड का ऑप्शन देती है, राइट? इफ गिवन अ चॉइस एंड आई एम बीइंग वेरी केयरफुल हियर, अगर आपको ऑप्शन मिलता है SOP लिखने का, आपको बोला जाता है SOP लिखने का, आपकी टैलेंट इसमें होनी चाहिए कि 1000 वर्ड की SOP को आप 500 वर्ड्स में लिख रहे हो. 500 is basically considered to be a good word limit, right? So if you want to write more and more, your ability should be in bringing all these things and make it more concise. If you are able to put all of these points together, make it very short, very simple, right? And if you are able to put things in perspective in very limited number of words, that is going to be very effective. Because being very honest, आप HR से बात करो, recruitment वाली टीम से बात करो, nobody has the time to read full length SOPs, right? 1000-2000 words शायद कॉलेज वाले पढ़ते होंगे लेकिन कंपनी वाले नहीं पढ़ते, right? So please be very particular. बड़ी से बड़ी चीज कम वर्ड्स में लिखने में आपकी कला होनी चाहिए. Please put out your talent accordingly, right? Do not focus on writing very long SOPs. Try to be as crisp and as succinct as you can be. Yeah. So this is basically what an SOP does to you, right? I hope you are able to read what is there in the red part. The SOP should basically be the bridge that connects all these places, right? This is where you are right now, and this is where you want to be. The SOP has to be the link between the two of them. And the last quote, which is on a parting note, and that's my last slide. Right? Everything that has to be said, right? Everything that has to be said in the world has already been said, right? The only thing is you have to say it in a very different way. You have to say it in a way that people have not heard before. Right? Not sure how many people will relate to this, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that you have to tell your story in a very different way. You have to tell your SOP, write your SOP in a very different way. And of course, you can reach out for help, like people like me, just follow me on LinkedIn, and you will come across the kind of content that I make is primarily to help good storytelling. Right? That's the overall idea. So I think that's all that I have for the day. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thanks for being so patient. I understand that engineering students, right? We tend to have most of us behave like excited electrons about most of it. So I really appreciate all of you sitting there, being very patient, very polite with your questions. So in case if there are questions, I'm happy to take them up. If not, I think we can close the session.
Now moving on to the next part of the talk series, we have certain questions, some of which we collected from the audience in advance and some
Sure.
which they had asked in the session. One of the most common doubts is that what's the basic difference between a CV, SOP and a resume?
Okay, great. So we've not talked much about resume. We did not talk about CV also, right? Because 90 minutes में SOP ही cover हो पाता है, इसीलिए मैंने extra बात नहीं की. But to just say it in one sentence, CV is more job specific, right? Resume is rather detailed, has more details about whatever you want to put out, and SOP is nothing but more descriptive in nature. That is the primary difference between all three of them. If you want to invest in a resume and invest in an SOP. These are the two most important documents.
So next question is it better to make a resume with Latex software or better to make it in Word or in Canva?
Sure. So I am somebody who believes that it should be appealing to your eyes, right? अगर आप CV बनाते हो and if it looks very attractive, if somebody is able to get if you're able to get your attention very quickly, that definitely helps. I am somebody who makes my documents on Canva. I'm somebody who uses Canva extensively, and I'm somebody who promotes the usage of Canva as well. So if you want to make your CV or make your resume, I would recommend you use Canva and one of these tools, but be very particular about the color. Yeah.
So third question.